Hi, friends. So, this past weekend, February 26th through March 2nd, Marathon had a server slam. Kind of like a stress test slash beta slash get people excited before the game comes out on the 5th slash you can try it for free. So, if you hate it, no worries. But if you love it, you got a little taste before the full game is coming out in a couple days. In fact, the full game is coming out tomorrow. So, I wanted to get my thoughts out there on the server slam. I played less than I would like to have, but I played on both PC and PS5. Yes, I pre ordered the game for both platforms. I like being able to play it wherever I am. So let's get to the things that I thought Marathon did really well. The art and the graphics kind of goes without saying. That is the major draw and was the initial major draw to me, for me, to Marathon. The world looks stunning. The characters are awesome. It's absolutely beautiful. I think the art style is fantastic. I know some people don't agree, and that is fine. We are all out our opinions, but the art to me is just hands down one of my favorite styles. So when I hopped into the Server Slam, there were several cinematics as you unlocked things, but the opening cinematic I was floored by. I felt like I needed to have a seatbelt on my gaming chair. It was fantastic. The characters. Each character, known as a runner shell, I think they're all fantastic, quite honestly. I think their art directions are beautiful. I think they are so cool with their unique abilities and skills. I am a Void main, aka Assassin, but it feels dirty to call him that. I am a Void main. I will branch out to other shells, but because I'm old and neurodivergent, I need to practice my skills and button pressing and all of that good stuff with one shell. So I'm sticking with Void until I feel a little more skilled, a little more prepared. I'm not sure, but I would like to try Rook, of course. And Thief is a loot goblin, and Glitch is a cute. Honestly, I'll try them all. Let's be serious. So the shells in themselves are fantastic. I like that Bungie released a cinematic yesterday that was essentially a little world building slash story of teams of runners attempting to break into the UESC marathon, and it was brilliant. It made me more excited for each of the different runners. Kind of going back to the aesthetics, it's this dystopic, cyberpunky, bright colors, blocky elements. Absolutely loved it. I pulled this quote from an article off of Creative Block's website. I will post the link in the description of this video. They sat down with Joe. The author is Joe Foley. They sat down with Joseph Cross when he was still on this project to talk about the art. The article's title is Bungie's Art Director Explains Marathon's Controversial Look. And one quote that I really liked from Joseph Cross says, on one side, it's about a simplified, deconstructed, universal design language, strong graphic design and color statements, and limited materials. The other side is about realistic proportions and scale, implied functional and detail, and a generally grounded world. And this is how he described the style of graphic realism that we see in Marathon. I think it's fantastic. Also, Joseph Cross, if you hear this, I hope you land somewhere softly and they appreciate your talent as much as I do. Weapons. I think the weapons are fun. They're blocky, which lends them to be 3D printed. So someone please get a store going so I can give you my money because I don't have a 3D printer nor the capabilities of actually printing anything. I think that the way the weapons are styled plays into the ideology of like where runners come from. The idea of these runner shells being these created units that a human then transfers their consciousness to go on ground in Tau Ceti. And these weapons, while really fun to look at, do kind of lend to the mass-produced, printed, and created ideology that I think would make sense with this type of system, with runner shells, the massive risk that they are in when they go on ground. I just think it's cool. So during the Server Slam, we were allowed access to 2 maps, Perimeter and Dire Marsh. I spent a lot of time on Perimeter because it felt a little more beginner friendly and I felt a little more comfortable on that map. So my thoughts on Perimeter is that it is eerie and it plays into the abandoned colony feeling really well. You come up across these different buildings, and there is this is detritus and just stuff everywhere. It looks like people kind of left mid activity. You see food containers. There's just things lying about, folios, and it kind of tells a story of these people just vanished mid workday potentially. Just very interesting things I enjoyed. The sound design, they really stepped it up from the alpha to now, which makes sense because the alpha was almost a year ago. And it really creates tension, especially when you're wearing a headset. I so suggest a headset, of course, for PvP, but also just to enjoy the sounds more thoroughly. There's this like eerie tension when you're navigating open areas where you're not sure if there's UESC around the corner, you're not sure if there's people around the other corner, by people I mean other runners. You're not sure if there's a stink plant there to ruin your day. You're not sure about any or turrets. And there's these noises that are in the game of like metal shifting when you're near the buildings that just put you on edge because it's like, did you hear a footstep? No. Are you sure you didn't hear a footstep? It's really cool. Also, with the terrain being hilly in spots, you don't know what you're going to see at the top of that hill. Again, it could be UESC, it could be another runner, it could be, again, a stink plant. I don't know which is worse, honestly. Dire Marsh is super cool, and I do look forward to spending more time on it now that I feel a little more comfortable and better at the game. Still a massive skill issue, but I am trying. Dire Marsh, reason why I avoided it is because it was more heavily populated with UESC. There was more events going on. It felt like that were more PvE and PvP in nature, and I just need to get my controls down because the amount of times I threw ammo boxes at somebody when I was trying to melee them is more than zero, and it's embarrassing. So I need to get a little bit better. But the marsh is really beautiful. I like the anomaly. It just feels more dangerous. When you go into a building, the buildings feel more tight and easily to get lost in, at least if you're me. And they just dead end sometimes. So when you're trying to get away from UESC or their players, if you don't know that building, sometimes all of a sudden you're in a corner and it's curtains for you. I marked this as lore slash story slash world building. Let's get one thing straight. I am a Bungie fan. I'm not going to apologize for that. I love what Bungie has done in terms of gaming. Are they perfect? No, no one is. However, I am not at all shocked that the story, the lore, the world building is fantastic because to me, Bungie has always had a strong narrative team. They have. Even Lightfall, which I think was too highbrow for the consumer base. You didn't hear me say that just now. Anyways, I was sucked in with the opening cinematics and enjoyed every faction rep as they popped up, as I knocked off achievements, as I did more quests. I love the little blips and pops in of different faction reps. Gantry is my dude. I am Mida all the way. I also love the Codex. I think it's an incredible in-game tool, similar to like the lore books in Destiny 2, if I had to compare it to something, where you unlock an achievement or you unlock some kind of item and all of a sudden there's a pop-up that expands on a map, a runner shell, UESC. It's really cool, and it's a really cool place to go back to and read if you just want to enjoy some more of the lore, but I like how interactive it feels. And in general, I just think the world's incredible. Quite honestly, I think the world is fantastic. And a caveat, because this is something that I just had a conversation about earlier today. When Marathon was first announced, I was one of those people who was very heartbroken that Marathon was going to be an extraction shooter and not, in fact, a single-player campaign-style game. Because of the world and the lore and the narrative, I was like, this would be amazing as a single-player campaign. There's no way in hell they're pulling this off as an extraction shooter. And after playing this past weekend and putting a lot of time in solo and with friends, I stand corrected. I will admit that I was wrong. I think that how Bungie put the narrative together with the genre of extraction shooter is masterful and just incredible. And it's fine if you think, I'll say it first, I'll be a Bungie shill. I don't care. I think what they have here is really magical. If it's not for you, that is totally fine. But as someone who is skeptical and even a little bit let down, I stand completely corrected. You win this one, Bungie. Another thing I really like is that in-game completion of certain achievements equals new cosmetics. So you can gain cosmetics and little stickers for your guns and little charms and little titles, all just by playing the game. Now, don't get me wrong, if there was a way to look up how much money I've spent on Destiny 2 in the store, we don't need to talk about it. We don't need to talk about it. So I'm definitely going to be all into that store buying skins as well, because I need my Void to be as fashionable as possible. But I like that you can just play the game and unlock things. I think it's fantastic. It's a massive incentive to do objectives, which I love to do anyways, and I think it respects players' time when there is built into the game ways to unlock cosmetics. Also, with the game being just $40, I think that's also fantastic, because there's a low barrier to entry, especially with games being upwards of $100 now. Those are typically the collector's edition / deluxe edition if you want early access, but I see games regularly starting at $70 and getting up over $100 for certain editions. So at $40, I think this is an incredible implementation. And like I said before, I'm fully aware that there's probably going to be a premium battle pass or microtransactions. They've already talked about a store referring to skins in the store. You don't have to interact with it if you don't want to. I personally will be, because I love Marathon. I love everything I've seen so far, and I want to support this game. Another thing I really liked is the various factions and objectives within. So there are multiple factions, and each faction has their own ideology, their own way of interacting with their runner and with Tau Ceti, and you can absolutely play how you want to and build into which faction that you prefer, which then unlocks different build crafting options for your shells. And I just think it's really cool because it gives the players more autonomy over their character. One of the things people complained about early on was that Marathon felt similar to a hero shooter, because you can't individualize you're not customizing a character, you're not creating a character, you're being forced to choose between a roster of characters. And I think that factions seek to make this a little bit more, giving a player more expression over their character, because you can choose a runner, and then within a runner you can choose a faction and build from there. And I think that's really fantastic. If you're asking me, I think Arachne goes super hard, but I'm not a PvP god, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I could ever pledge to the altar of Arachne. I'm a Mina girl all the way. Plus, like I said, Gantry is my favorite so far that I've met of the faction reps. I love Gantry. I'm sorry, not sorry. The other thing that I find really interesting, and insofar right now I do not mind, is unlike Arc Raiders, yes, I made it 12 whole minutes without comparing Marathon to Arc Raiders. I think it's a personal best. There is no safe pocket. In Arc Raiders, you can shove something in that good old prison wallet, and no matter what happens to you, you at least have that one item, or two items, depending on which augment you're running. In Marathon so far, you don't have that. You die, it's all gone. Sorry, not sorry. Now, things that I am a little bit about. Nothing major, just me being a little nitpicky and, not just being constant praise. The movement feels really, really good, but the one thing that I complained about D2 PvP, and it kind of carried over into Marathon a little bit, is it's a little slow for me. The heat system has gotten a lot better. The heat system in the alpha was very, very frustrating. I tried playing Glitch and quickly Vandal, and quickly did not enjoy it because I felt like I could not achieve anything. I felt like I was struggling to do anything because my heat meter maxed out, and here I am bot walking everywhere. Also, I wish I could go prone. For the love of God, I want to be Assassin / Void from the cinematic, laying in a bush with my sniper. Let me go prone, please. Again, just little nitpicky things. I know this is probably going to get me a little bit of hate, and before I say anything, just know that I love you and I respect everybody's opinions, and I don't think anybody's wrong. I think the TTK feels really bad right now. And I know that people that have had more access to the game, the NDA test and whatnot, said that they as in Bungie, worked incredibly hard on making the TTK better. I did not get to play those tests, so I don't know what that feels like. I played the alpha and I played the server slam. But with lower level shields, the TTK feels really bad. Basically, if you don't get the drop on somebody and they get the drop on you, you're dead. I have managed to kill another runner a couple times where they got the drop on me first, but it's very rare. Could be a skill issue. I'm definitely opening up to that. Also, like I said, it could be as you get better build crafting or more in-depth build crafting, better shields and higher level weapons, that this won't feel the case. But this, as somebody who's not skilled at PvP, is enthusiastically bad at PvP, does not care about dying. The TTK is not a make or break, but I feel like people who do struggle with things like gear fear, who are struggling with, they're not the best PvPers, and might have a little bit less skill. I'm 100% calling myself out on this. This might be a kind of a make or break point where the frustration might mount to where they aren't enjoying the game as much. I still don't care. I'm still going to play. Just my 2 cents. Finding ammo and health items were also a bit difficult. I understand the point of packing for what you're planning to do, also not engaging when I shouldn't be engaging. I learned that the hard way, where I'd fight every UAC I found, and then all of a sudden I have no ammos, no heals, no shields, and there's a player. So there is nuance to this, and I also started finding more ammo crates on the edges of perimeter, as well as Saturday for some reason I could never find any, but Sunday I found several med kits on the wall, which made things better. Of course, if you bring in your own loadout versus running a sponsor loadout, you can then carry more ammo and heals, but lower shields, I feel like meant or lower level shields meant I was running more shield patches and ammo than I had room to loot. But again, I feel like with time and bigger packs and upgrades, that won't be as big of an issue. Also, like I said, this can be addressed with better build crafting, weapons, and better understanding of weak points or general knowledge on how to take on UASC, which means also sometimes avoiding engagements altogether or avoiding engagements with other players if you see them first, instead of heading at them to try to third party them as they fight something else. Let them be. Save your ammo, save your heals. And a little small, like, nitpicky, stupid thing, and a second Arc Raider announcement or comparison is in Arc, specifically before aggression-based matchmaking went live, so when I was being quote-unquote forced to do more PvP, when I'd find guns in, like, when I was looting and I'd find guns, I would dismantle them so other players couldn't have them. So I wouldn't have to worry about someone coming in a room behind me potentially and picking up that gun and then shooting me in the back. In Marathon, I don't see an option for that, and I would kind of like to be able to do that. Or when I drop an ammo crate, if I'm only running something with like a volt battery, instead of having to pick up all the ammo just so no one else could have it, if I could like destroy it or like not decraft, but dismantle so other players potentially couldn't find it, I would really like that. It's just a really nitpicky thing that Arc Raiders kind of taught me to protect myself. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And now, on to some potential hot takes. If you're with me so far, thank you. This is going to be a longer video. Personally, I think the UI is fine. There are a couple examples of which I would agree with the small tweaks. Some icons of implants and mods do look exactly the same, which requires you to hover over and really read, which is fun when you're making a loadout on the screen before you go into a run. Not so fun when you're in a run and you're potentially hearing UESC and or another player sneaking up on you and you're trying to figure out, do I want to put this in as my last item in my bag or not? Also, I like, God, here we go again, number 3, how Arc Raiders, when you find that epic loot, that like fun little sound that plays, I would like that to be a thing. Not necessarily the same sound effect, right? But some kind of thing to let me know, hey, this thing you found, there's 5 things in this loot box. This thing, though, is really special because sometimes I'm panic looting because I hear something coming and I don't have a chance to look at it later, and I'm sure I've left things behind that I actually wanted. I think, honestly, that the UI fits the theme of the game. I think the UI is just fine. It's just learning a new UI. Again, there's a couple little things that I do agree with that needs a little bit of a tweak, but overall, I think it's fine. I specifically really love the part of the UI where you can hover over the different mod slots for your loadouts, and it hovers over like the arms, the body, the arms, the legs, body of the runner. Super cool. Sponsored kits, I don't think having access to them is a problem, because again, they're so bare bones. You get whatever weapon you get very low level heals, very low level of shield patches, and they're typically the depleted ones too. So I don't think that they're a big danger like the Arc Raiders free kits people kept talking about. Again, the caveat being high level players can do more with less, so the concern of those being bent on PvP, loading in over and over, using up their sponsored kits um, with no risk to their vault, that's going to happen. And if you're really good at PvP, you're going to roll people anyways, so I feel like that's just, it is what it is. And then last but not least, I did see a patch note on this. They did post this the other day, duo queue. So I love solo queuing. I am not afraid to solo queue. I think, of course, trios is also super fun. I look forward to doing that with more friends as well. I did play a lot of duo queuing on Sunday. Me and another friend were playing together. I just closed matchmaking so it wouldn't fill that third person in, and we just ran the two of us, and I thought it was really, really fun. We ran into trios. Sometimes we won, most of the time we didn't, but I would really love like an actual specific duo queue. I don't think duos should go against solo players. I'm totally fine with duos for right now being in trio lobbies. Um, but I would love a duo option for like specific for duo lobbies. They're looking into it. I think that'd be really cool. That's just me. Um, so those are my thoughts, the quote good, bad, and hot takes. Overall, I'm very excited for tomorrow. The game launches tomorrow. I have been going through withdrawals, watching clips, rewatching cinematics, rewatching my own stream. I am thoroughly stoked for Marathon, and I hope it has a long and storied life ahead of it.